simple human truths that their lyrics contain so often capture and grip our hearts. I'm a fan.
What if I told you that one of music's biggest legends just broke his silence about a...
I'm never going to be able to sing like you do. I admit it. But I can still do it.
Another music icon after keeping quiet for decades. At 78 years old, Barry Gibb, the last surviving member of the Bee Gees, has finally decided to tell the world exactly what he thinks about Paul McCartney. And trust me, what he revealed will completely change how you see both of these musical giants forever. For years, people have wondered about the relationship between Barry Gibb and Paul McCartney. Were they friends? Were they rivals? Did they secretly dislike each other? The music world has been full of rumors and whispers, but Barry has always kept his thoughts to himself. Until now, let me take you on a journey through Barry Gibb's incredible life. And then I'll share with you the shocking truth he revealed about Paul McCartney that has everyone talking. Barry Gibb's story begins on a small island called the Isle of Man, where he was born on September 1st, 1946. His real name was Barry Allen Crompton Gibb, and from the very beginning, music was flowing through his veins. His parents, Hugh and Barbara, noticed something special about their son and his younger brothers, Robin and Maurice. These weren't just ordinary kids playing around with toy instruments. They had real talent, the kind that makes parents stop everything and listen. The Gibb family didn't stay on the Isle of Man for long. They packed up their lives and moved first to Manchester, England, and then made an even bigger journey all the way to Brisbane, Australia. Imagine being a young kid and having to start over in a completely new country, with new accents, new friends, and a whole new way of life. But for Barry and his brothers, this move to Australia would turn out to be the best thing that ever happened to them. It's in Australia that the magic really began. The three Gibb brothers got together and formed a band. They called themselves the Bee Gees, and little did anyone know at the time. But this name would soon become one of the most famous in all of music history. Barry, being the oldest, naturally became the leader of the group. He had this amazing ability to write songs that just seemed to touch people's hearts in ways they never expected. In the mid-1960s, something incredible started happening. The Bee Gees weren't just a local Australian band anymore. They were becoming known all around the world. Barry's songwriting skills were like nothing anyone had ever heard before. He could take simple emotions that everyone feels, like love, sadness, hope, and longing, and turn them into beautiful melodies that made people want to sing along. By the late 1960s and early 1970s, the Bee Gees had already created some songs that would live forever. Have you ever heard To Love Somebody or Massachusetts? These weren't just catchy tunes. They were masterpieces that showed Barry's incredible gift for telling stories through music. When you listened to these songs, you didn't just hear music. You felt like Barry was sitting right next to you, sharing his deepest thoughts and feelings. But here's where things get really interesting. The 1970s were about to change everything for Barry Gibb and his brothers. The world of music was shifting, and a new sound was taking over dance floors everywhere. It was called disco, and most musicians were either embracing it or running away from it. Barry Gibb made a decision that would change his life forever. He decided to dive headfirst into disco music. This wasn't just a small change for the Bee Gees. This was like completely reinventing themselves as artists. Barry started developing this incredible high-pitched singing voice called a falsetto. If you've ever heard songs like Stayin' Alive or Night Fever, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That distinctive, almost ethereal voice became Barry's signature sound, and it made the Bee Gees absolutely unstoppable. The movie Saturday Night Fever came out, and the Bee Gees provided most of the music for it. This wasn't just a successful movie soundtrack. This was a cultural earthquake that shook the entire world. Songs like Stayin' Alive, Night Fever, and How Deep Is Your Love weren't just popular. They were everywhere. You couldn't turn on a radio, walk into a store, or go to a party without hearing these incredible songs. Barry and his brothers weren't just making music anymore. They were creating the soundtrack to an entire generation's lives. People were getting married to their songs, dancing at weddings, celebrating at parties, and falling in love to the beautiful melodies that Barry created. The Grammy Awards started pouring in, album sales went through the roof, and suddenly the Bee Gees were household names all around the world. But Barry's talents didn't stop with the Bee Gees. He started writing songs for other famous artists, and every single one became a massive hit. He wrote Woman in Love for Barbra Streisand, Chain Reaction for Dia, No Ross, and Islands in the Stream for Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton. Can you imagine having the ability to write hit songs not just for yourself, but for completely different artists with completely different styles? That's the kind of genius Barry Gibb possesses. Throughout his career, Barry has written or helped write over 1,000 songs. Think about that for a moment. Over 1,000 songs. That's like writing a new song every few weeks for decades and decades. We're not talking about just any songs. We're talking about songs that people still listen to and love today. Songs that have been covered by other artists. Songs that have become part of the fabric of popular music. But Barry's life hasn't been all success and celebration. He's faced some of the most heartbreaking losses that anyone could imagine. His youngest brother Andy, who was also a successful singer, passed away in 1988 when he was just 30 years old. Then in 2003, Maurice, one of his Bee Gees brothers, died unexpectedly. And in 2012, Robin, his other brother and fellow Bee Gee, also passed away. Imagine losing all of your brothers, the people you grew up with, made music with, and shared your dreams with. For Barry, each of these losses was like losing a part of himself. But instead of giving up on music, he found a way to honor their memory by continuing to create and perform. He channeled his grief and his love for his brothers into his music, keeping the Bee Gees' legacy alive, even though he was now the only one left. In 2016, at the age of 70, Barry released a solo album called In the Now. This wasn't just another album from an aging rock star trying to stay relevant. This was a deeply personal collection of songs that showed Barry's emotional journey through decades of success, loss, and self-discovery. The album proved that even in his 70s, Barry Gibb still had something important and to say through his music. The world has recognized Barry's incredible contributions to music in many ways. He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and the Songwriters Hall of Fame. But perhaps the greatest honor came in 2018 when Queen Elizabeth II knighted him, making him Sir Barry Gibb. This wasn't just an award for selling lots of records. This was recognition for his services to music and charity, for the way he used his talents to make the world a better place. Now, let's talk about Barry's personal life, because it's just as interesting as his musical career. When Barry was just 19 years old, he got married for the first time to a young woman named Maureen Bates. But being a teenager and trying to manage a rising music career while being married turned out to be incredibly difficult. The constant touring, recording sessions, and media attention put too much strain on their relationship. After less than 4 years, they divorced in 1970. But that same year, something magical happened. Barry was appearing on a famous British music show called Top of the Pops when he met a woman who would change his life forever. Her name was Linda Gray, and she had been crowned Miss Edinburgh, making her something of a celebrity herself. Their meeting was like something out of a romantic movie, happening backstage surrounded by music, lights, and the excitement of live television. Barry and Linda fell in love quickly, and on September 1st, 1970, which happened to be Barry's 24th birthday, they got married. This marriage would turn out to be one of the strongest and most enduring relationships in the entire entertainment industry. Think about how many celebrity marriages end in divorce, especially when fame and constant travel are involved. But Barry and Linda have been together for more than 50 years now, which is absolutely incredible. Together, Barry and Linda raised 5 children: Stephen, Ashley, Travis, Michael, and Alexandra. Their oldest son Stephen followed in his father's footsteps and became a musician. As their children grew up and had families of their own, Barry became a proud grandfather to 7 grandchildren. Despite all of his fame and success, Barry has always said that being a husband, father, and grandfather brings him more joy than any Grammy Award or platinum album ever could. Although Barry and Linda were born in Britain, their lives gradually became more connected to America, particularly Miami, Florida. In 2009, they made the decision to become American citizens, though they kept their British citizenship as well. This showed their love for both countries and their appreciation for the opportunities they had been given in each place. One of the most fascinating stories about Barry's personal life involves his unlikely friendship with the king of pop himself, Michael Jackson. In a very personal interview, Barry shared some incredible details about their relationship that most people never knew about. Michael Jackson, despite being one of the most famous people in the world, would sometimes fly to Miami and stay at Barry's house when he needed to escape from the constant pressure of fame. Can you imagine Michael Jackson sitting in your kitchen, watching TV, and just trying to be a normal person for a while? That's exactly what happened at Barry's house. Barry described how Michael would sit with him and watch news reports about fans gathered outside Michael's hotels, and Michael would chuckle and make his famous hee-hee sound while watching it all on television. It was like he could step outside of his fame for a moment and see it from a different perspective. But their friendship wasn't just about hanging out. They were both serious musicians, so they spent hours together writing songs, sharing ideas, and creating music. Barry even mentioned that Michael enjoyed drinking wine, which might surprise people who thought of Michael as someone who lived a completely clean lifestyle. There were evenings when Michael would simply fall asleep on Barry's floor, feeling safe and relaxed in his friend's home. Barry also revealed that Michael stayed upstairs in his house for an extended period, right before his child molestation trial began. But Barry made it clear that they never talked about the legal troubles. Instead, they focused on what they both loved most, making music. This friendship showed a different side of both men, away from the public eye and the pressures of being global superstars. Barry's connection to music history goes even deeper. In 2006, he bought the historic home in Tennessee that had belonged to Johnny Cash and June Carter Cash, 2 legendary country music stars. Barry didn't just want to own a famous house. He had a beautiful vision of turning it into a songwriting retreat, where musicians could come to be inspired and create new music. Tragically, in 2007, the house was completely destroyed by fire during renovation work. All of that musical history, all of those memories, went up in smoke. It was heartbreaking for Barry, who had hoped to preserve an important piece of American music history. Eventually, a new house was built on the property, but Barry sold it in 2014, closing that chapter of his life. Now, here's what everyone has been waiting for. At 78 years old, Barry Gibb has finally decided to tell the truth about his relationship with Paul McCartney, and what he revealed is absolutely stunning. For decades, people have wondered about these 2 musical giants. Both were British. Both were part of incredibly successful bands. Both wrote songs that changed the world. Were they friends? Were they competitors? Did they respect each other? Or was there hidden tension between them? Barry has now revealed that in the early days of the Bee Gees, the Beatles, and especially Paul McCartney, were both inspiring and intimidating. He admitted that the Beatles were changing music so fast and so dramatically that other musicians could barely keep up. Barry said it was like trying to make your mark in music while the Beatles were out there rewriting all the rules every few months. But here's the beautiful truth that Barry shared. Paul McCartney was never arrogant or competitive with other musicians. Behind the scenes, away from the cameras and the media, Paul was always gracious, generous with his time, and genuinely interested in what other artists were doing. Barry told a specific story that perfectly captures their relationship. In the late 1970s, when the Bee Gees were at the absolute peak of their disco success, Barry was recording in a London studio. Paul McCartney didn't make some grand entrance or try to steal attention. He simply dropped by the studio to listen, share some laughs, and talk about the craft of songwriting. Barry said it wasn't about egos that night. It was just two guys who loved music sitting in a room and talking about chord changes, melodies, and why certain songs just work. This simple story reveals so much about both men. Despite their enormous fame and success, they were still just musicians who were passionate about their craft. Barry completely destroyed the myth that there was any rivalry or tension between the Bee Gees and the Beatles. He explained that while comparisons between the bands were inevitable, the reality was much simpler and much warmer. There was mutual respect, a shared understanding of what it's like to deal with fame, and an unspoken friendship among people who had experienced both incredible success and enormous pressure. What makes Barry's revelation even more powerful is his reason for speaking out now. He said that when you get to his age, you don't want to leave things unsaid. Paul McCartney has been part of the soundtrack of Barry's life, and Barry hopes that the Bee Gees have been part of Paul's life in some small way too. Barry wanted people to know that Paul is as real and kind as they come, and he added with a smile that Paul still plays a mean bass guitar. This wasn't just a polite compliment from one musician to another. This was a heartfelt tribute from someone who has spent decades in the music industry and knows genuine talent and character when he sees it. By choosing this moment in his life to share these stories, Barry has given music fans an incredible gift. He's shown us that even at the highest levels of fame and success, artists can support each other, respect each other, and form genuine friendships based on their shared love of music. Barry's friendship with Paul McCartney wasn't built on constant contact or regular meetings. It was forged through shared experiences, mutual admiration, and a deep understanding of what it means to create music that touches people's lives. Both men have spent decades giving joy to millions of people around the world, and they recognize that gift in each other. This revelation from Barry Gibb teaches us something beautiful about human nature and about the music industry. In a world where we often hear about conflicts, competition, and drama between celebrities, Barry and Paul's relationship shows us that genuine respect and friendship can exist even between the biggest stars in the world. As Barry Gibb continues his incredible journey at 78 years old, he's given us this wonderful glimpse into a friendship that has lasted for decades. He's shown us that behind all the fame, the awards, and the success, musicians are still just people who love creating beautiful sounds and sharing them with the world. The truth about Barry Gibb and Paul McCartney isn't scandalous or dramatic. It's something much more beautiful than that. It's a story of mutual respect, shared passion, and the kind of friendship that can only exist between people who truly understand each other's art and dedication. So there you have it. The truth that Barry Gibb finally decided to share with the world at 78 years old. It's not the kind of truth that creates headlines or starts controversies. It's the kind of truth that reminds us why we love music and why we admire the people who create it. If this story touched your heart the way it touched mine, please hit that like button and let me know in the comments what you think about Barry's revelation. Have you been a fan of the Bee Gees or the Beatles? Did this change how you see these incredible musicians? Share this video with anyone who loves music history. And don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories about the legends who created the soundtrack to our lives. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.